Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another live reading with me, Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer. And once again, we are reading from H.V. Morton's I Saw Two Englands, his last glimpse of pre-war England and his first impressions of England at war. And for me, this is a very interesting, fascinating book. And also, it is a last glimpse for a lot of people, I think, of an England that was once amazing, that is now slowly waking up to, after 80 years of falling down a pit and now scrabbling out of it. Hello to Ed Loud. Lovely to see you. Hello to lovely Julia, of course. Yay, YouTube didn't let me down today. Thank goodness for that. Just like to point out that there are Bald Explorer mugs at the baldexplorer.com website. But you have to fill it up with your own Bald Explorer coffee or tea or whatever else other drink that you have. It's lovely to see you. So I bunged the thing on a little bit quicker than I normally do. Earlier, I guess. So I think this is the last chapter of the... I think this is the last chapter before we get to the next chapter. What I mean is when then the war starts. Hello to Adrian. Nice to see you. Good afternoon to Graham Roffey. Lovely, hot, sunny day. I went out to do a video for tomorrow, which is now edited and uploading. It's come out quite well, I think. I hope you enjoy it. It's another Bald Explorer in Search of Sussex continuation from the Hangleton video, not the sort of footnote ones that I've done either side of it, so hopefully you will enjoy it. And had a great time, apart from losing a bloody lens for my camera, but never mind about that. I looked everywhere. Fell out the bag, a DSLR camera lens. Yeah, not cheap either, but never mind. This is the hazards when you do this every day for a job. Hello to the Anglo-Saxon travelling duo. To Audrey and to Fiona. Nice to see you. So we're going to continue. It's been very hot. I was glad to... Do you know, I got up on Devil's Dyke about 6:30, somewhere between there, and it was busy, and it didn't stop being busy, and I was desperately I was waiting. Some shots were just very little inconsequential bits, but I had to say something to the camera, or that was what was in my mind. I want to get to this point and say something. And people would come. One bloke came and lit a fag and was just standing there. And I was just going, oh, go away, go away. I want to do this piece to camera. I don't want you in the background. Please go away. Especially as he had a pink shirt on and a white flat cap and tattoos all over him. I just thought, oh, I don't know. It doesn't look right. Doesn't look right, mate. Doesn't look right. An expensive day. Yes, I know. I'm sure we've all done it. We've all done it. So somebody somewhere has picked up this lens and gone, oh, that's nice. I wonder if it fits my camera. And it'll be all right if it fits their camera and they get use out of it. As Julia said to me, she said, well, maybe the universe has got a little project for it. But it would be sort of like somebody gets it and it's there been a couple of days, it's got wet and it's rusted up or it doesn't work and they can't do anything and then it's a waste. Anyway... we will crack on. So in chapter 6, I see the ruins of Silchester. I pass on to Oxford, spend the night at Godstow, and go to Cumnor, where Amy Robsart was murdered, or not, as you decide for yourself. Pass through Woodstock, where I see Blenheim Palace. Go to Fotheringhay, the scene of Mary Stuart's execution. At Peterborough, I conclude my glimpse of the pre-war England and return home to await the outbreak of war. So that was that. Linda Kane, thank you so very much. Linda Kane, I saw the email, but I couldn't answer it immediately because I was in deep edit with lots of bits of film, all around me. I couldn't get out till I'd finished the editing. But Linda Kane, thank you so much. Made a lovely donation to me. Heard the news about, and I didn't say it in the naked English. I wasn't sort of fishing at all. I was beside myself. You can't imagine. You think I'm a nice. Well, you know what I'm like when I get into a rant and I get going, and I was so annoyed with myself. And we all can have permission for being annoyed with ourselves. It's being annoyed with somebody else and going over the top about being annoyed with somebody else. You can sort of, calm down. It's not their fault. Come on, whatever. But you have permission. The one person you can be annoyed with, I think, that nobody can say calm down to, is yourself. You can be angry with yourself for stupid things that you do. And I was livid. Gosh. I didn't scream out. I wasn't that mad, but it was just, oh no, really? Really? What? And do you know what made it funny? Not funny. What made it the injustice? When I was filming, somebody on a bicycle had obviously dropped one of these little I don't know what you would call them, pedometer or something. Something tells you how fast you're cycling, how many miles you've cycled, a little computer that you have on your bicycle. And it obviously clips on. And somebody else had picked it up and put it on a post. And I was filming there and I saw this thing and I picked it up and I looked at it and I thought, wow, that's a nice bit of kit. It's a nice bit of kit. And I thought, I could just slip that in my pocket. I have no immediate use for it, but I do go on my bike occasionally. I thought, oh, that might be handy. And I thought, no, that's not the thing you do. And I put it back on there. Actually, I did turn it on to see if there was any charge in it, and there was. There was still two blips on the battery. So I turned it back off, put it on the thing, and I thought, there it is. Hopefully whoever finds it will find it. Yeah, and I did that, and then, of course, I lose my lens. And then I lost my mind. Linda Kane, your book is missing out Midhurst, Farnham, Alton, Selborne, or did I miss it? Wait a minute, we did Selborne. Did we do a... Oh, we did a... Yeah, we did Alton and Selborne. I think we did a bit of Farnham. I think we did a bit of that. Oh my God, Turbo Street. I smashed a £300 lens. Oh, yeah, it was 150 quid. So it's a cheap lens, as lenses go, because you can spend thousands. But it's a pancake lens, 24mm lens for anybody who's interested, 24mm lens. But it's a useful little thing because it's so crisp on my Canon DSLR. It's so crisp. Because you don't have all the zooming stuff, it lets more light in, and it's low light, and it's great for the video that's on today, where I'm talking at my desk, at a little table in front of the fireplace. I shot that on the pancake lens. It's lovely and crisp, and it's just a very simple but very great lens. So there was a Garmin. No, it wasn't a Garmin. It was a Canon lens to go with my Canon camera. But it's not a massive expensive lens. That's what I mean. But they're not cheap. They're not cheap. Your book is I've read that. Chapter 5, Midhurst, Farnham, Alton, and Selborne. Or did I miss it? Says Linda Kane. Yeah, we did Midhurst, Farnham, Alton, and Selborne. We did that yesterday. But you were there, Linda. Anyway, we were sorry talking to people. We better get cracking on, haven't we? Sorry about the. To those people who are watching the repeat of this, or not so much the repeat, but you know what I mean, not live. To skip through all this nonsense. I'm sorry about that. It's very frustrating, as you can imagine. Anyway, tomorrow's video is up and it's nice. Oh, I must have missed it. The last I remember was Chichester. Blimey. Linda, too many Pims. Too many Pims. But anyway. Oh, Garmin bike, computerized device. Oh, one of those. No idea. It looked a decent bit of... I thought you were talking about lenses, and I was thinking, is it a Garmin lens? I thought, is there such a thing? Probably, might be. Sorry, my eye is a bit puggy. Oh, gosh. Right, here we go. Silchester was once a Roman city. Barry went there, and he showed us some video when he went there with Faden in the Vogue show the other week. And I'm desperate to go. I would love to go there and do a video about that, but we'll get there. There's plenty of time. Silchester was once a Roman city with a 3-mile circuit of walls. There is nothing to be seen today but fields and country lanes, which here and there cross the site of the vanished town. And thank God that there isn't, somebody hasn't decided to shove a new build inside the walls. Wouldn't that be awful? Some planner. They better not be watching. When Mr. Fred Davis wrote about the discoveries of Silchester in 1898, he estimated that the buildings in the centre of the ruins covered 9,699 square yards, or an area greater by 1,409 square yards than the space occupied in this time by Reading Town Hall. Not quite sure what he's getting at there. The municipal buildings, the covered market, the corn exchange, the museum, the library, the art gallery. I see. So Roman Silchester, or Caliva Atrebatum, I guess it was the Atrebates, the tribe, the Atrebates. I think that's how you pronounce it. To give it its old name, was one of the important towns of Roman Britain. Atrebates. Atrebates? Is that how it's pronounced? As opposed to Atrebates, which is how I first started to read a bit of the old words. But it's not really the old words, is it? Because that's a Latin word. Atrebates is not the Celtic, how they would have said it. It's only how the Romans have called it, if I remember rightly. Yes, yesterday, Linda. Linda, we did it yesterday. But you were there yesterday. Anyway, turning into a narrow lane, miles from anywhere, I knew I had arrived at Calvera Atrebatum when I saw, in a field near the road, a mouldering stretch of Roman wall, decayed and broken, but in parts still firmly set with indestructible Roman cement. I climbed the gate, and I was alone in Caliva. Is it how are we pronouncing this? Caliva Atrebatum. Caliva? Is it Caliva Atrebatum? Above the streets of the dead city, above the site of temple and basilica, main road, forum, and baths, waved a field of corn. The foundations of the houses, dryers' shops, and markets, which I had hoped to see, were hidden under a tall blanket of green. I sat there with a clearer idea of Caliva in my mind than ever that I had gained from books. The city occupied a key position, a logical creation of the road system. A logical creation of the road system of Roman Britain. It was like a star with 5 rays. From its 5 gates, 5 important roads led to great cities of the time. East to Londonium, north to Alcester, northwest to Corinium, or Cirencester, and 2 to the south. 1 to Salisbury, and the other to Venta Belgarum, Winchester. Every traveller from the West Country, as far north as Gloucester, must have passed through Caliva on their way to London. It was one of the grand junctions of Roman times. Oh, you weren't. Linda, you weren't there. You were because you were in the evening. Oh, yeah. Sorry, my apologies. Sometimes I can't always keep on top of everybody. I try to, keep the register and everything. 400 years while Britain was part of the Roman Empire, Caliva. How am I doing this Caliva right? Is that how it's spelled? Tell you how it's spelled. It's Calleva. I'd love to know how it's pronounced because I'm clearly not pronouncing it correctly. Wow, just look at Narcissus' impression of Caliva Atrebatum. Yeah, if you... I haven't seen it, actually, but I think Barry showed us a sign, that an interpretation board. Silchester was the place they found the eagle of the 9th Legion centuries after it disappeared in the wilds beyond Hadrian's Wall. Oh, right. Caliva Atrebates. So am I right then? Caliva Atrebates. Caliva Atrebates. Anyway. Breathe in the pure oxygen of a stale back room that hasn't had a window open for ages. Where are we? I have no idea. Yes, I've read that bit. I lost myself. I was sitting watching the... after 400 years, while Britain was part of the Roman Empire, Caliva was a great city. Generations of Romanized Britons were born there, lived and died where the corn now waves, grazed with pride at the temples and the basilica, and could not imagine in their wildest dreams that a time would come when Caliva would vanish from the earth, when a man would sit as I am sitting, watching corn rippling over the space within the walls. It would seem that civilizations, like individuals, do not find it easy to contemplate death. I suppose that's like us, isn't it? Saying, all this, imagine all this that we live in today has gone. We almost can't believe that would happen. But clearly, it could. And why did Caliva die? What happened to put an end to 400 years of thriving life? The archaeologists who have dug there for the best part of a century found only one clue. In late times, some of the city gates had been blocked up and narrowed, obviously to make them easier for a declining population to defend. While Rome was strong, peace reigned in Britain, and the gates were wide. But no sooner had Rome begun to totter than the continental pirates became bolder and more numerous, rowing their war galleys up the British rivers, landing and raiding the hapless towns and isolated villas, and one city at least narrowed its gates in defence. The end of Caliva was probably a slow paralysis leading to abandonment. Nowhere in the whole city did the excavators find one trace of fire or slaughter. Caliva seems to have been quietly evacuated and left to its fate. Soon the city walls would be overgrown with brambles, the streets thick with grass. Under the snows of winter and then the springs of the spring rains, the roofs would leak and eventually fall in, and it would not be long before the Saxon war bands coming through the dense forest, which in those days stretched almost to the eastern gate, would stand in silence and awe as they saw the dead city of Caliva like a white ghost at the edge of the forest. Leaving Silchester, I traversed lanes and furze-scattered commons and little woods, until I left Hampshire and crossed into Berkshire. To the left I saw a distant line of chalk downs, smoothed and curved against the sky, and when at length I came to houses and saw above a public house sign, "The Horse and Jockey," I knew that I had arrived at Newbury. About eight miles northeast of Newbury, in a marvellous tangle of lanes, I found the little hamlet of Aldworth, which boasts a gigantic I don't think he means boats, I think he means boasts. I think that's a misprint, which boasts a gigantic yew and a church filled pew high with a series of extraordinary tombs. The Dillabesh memorials have given the old church the appearance of a mortuary. Stiff stone men and women lie everywhere in attitudes of prayer, their feet to the altar. They rise above the pews and lie in window niches. Never have I seen a small church so dominated by one family. Oh, and here's a picture. Oh, we've got to go there. That's fascinating. Look at that. There's a picture of them lying about in repose. And I guess that must be a bit of Silchester. I don't know. I didn't see what that said. But there's a picture of the church. Of the inside of the church in amongst the pews. They seem to have, a number of them got their arms missing. Oh yes, here's the cornfield. Yes, stiff-strung men lie everywhere. Oh, that's the right, yeah. Sorry. Interrupted the flow. Je comprends pas, or whatever it is. Most of the men are in armour, and some have brought their wives to church with them. During long centuries, the villagers of Aldworth have expressed their disapproval by knocking off an arm here and a nose there. Blimey. Oh, it's a typo. It's a typo. Thank you very much, Linda. Are you looking at the text as I read? You're seeing where I accidentally paraphrase. The ewe is 1,000 years old, apparently. Blimey. Legless. Did I make another mistake? This race of stone men ended, appropriately enough, with a famous geologist, Sir Henry Thomas de la Becche, the founder of the Royal School of Mines. Not mimes. The Royal School of Mimes is something completely different. But let's not go and get onto that. So the Royal School of Mines, who died, this Henry Thomas chap, died in 1855 and brought a distinguished family to an end. The tombs were one of the sights of Elizabethan England, and it's recorded that Queen Elizabeth went to see them, riding pillion behind the Earl of Leicester. Through the falling dusk, I went to Streatley, and on the way I came to a place where the fields seemed to slide off into emptiness. Looking down, I saw lights shining in the valley of the Thames. Oxford is one of those places which encourages the art of valediction. What does valediction mean? Somebody could tell me. That would be very handy. How natural is it that a young man or a young woman, having spent some years in its shelter, should address a few polite words of farewell before turning towards the bleaker regions of reality? Strangely enough, this custom of saying goodbye to Oxford seems to have been inaugurated by Queen Elizabeth. When Her Majesty was leaving Oxford in 1592, she stopped her coach before it went down the hill to Wheatley, and turning to the dreaming spires, she addressed them. "Farewell, farewell, dear Oxford," she said. "God bless thee, and increase thy sons in number, holiness, and virtue," she said. To validate, to confirm. What was that? The word valediction. Oh, is it part of validate? Valediction. Oh, right, the art of valediction, to confirm. Oh, okay. It would be impertinent for a stranger to presume to judge the holiness or virtue of Oxford, but he is at liberty to say that Her Majesty's other commands have been obeyed. Oxford sons have increased in much numbers, and each one possess either a motor car or a bicycle, that it is now difficult to cross the road except in a hunted run. No other town of its size in England leaves upon the mind such an impression of congestion. I wonder how true that is now. Everywhere seems to be congested, especially at the moment, mainly with bicycles, runners and dog walkers. "It may be possible," he said under his breath, "it may be possible to find in the remote depths of some college, possibly in its cellars, a place where one might be tolerably safe from assassination, or at least out of earshot of bicycle bells, motor horns, motor bicycles, and those sudden harsh rendering noises as if an 80-foot giant has torn his trousers, which indicate that a motor omnibus is changing gear." Was that the double declutch that we had before? The oh, Is that what it is? All she would now say is goodbye to McDonald's on the Headington roundabout if she was going on the A40 to Wheatley. Thank you, Ben Reeve, for that. Oh, dear. Also, the action of saying farewell. Oh, validation. Oh, okay. Validation is also... Valediction is also the act of saying farewell. Arrivederci. Ah, we didn't know that. How interesting. Yeah, so he doesn't like... It's fascinating because Priestley was the same. And what's his name? Rolt, LTC Rolt was the same, and Morton is the same. What is it with travel writers who presumably are going in motor cars and bits and pieces are absolutely against them? And here he's talking about the stuff. It is and you know, here's me travelling around with my videos, also going bloody cars, bloody bicycles, bloody runners, bloody dog walkers. It's you're not smiling. Okay, fair enough. It is surely remarkable that no one has persuaded Lord Nuffield to move the town of Oxford to some adjacent site where it might carry on its thriving business with greater efficiency, if only as an act of expatriation. Expiation. I can't know how you pronounce that word. Expiation. The creator of so many motor cars should restore to hang on, if only as an act of expiation, the creator of so many motor cars should restore to the university her ancient peace. Expation, is it? I went to the Trout Inn. Oh, always sounds like a great pub, doesn't it? The Trout Inn. I went... Excuse me. A bit of corona there. They get you in the end, these diseases, don't they? I went to the Trout Inn, which stands in the shadow of Godstow Bridge. The sound of water rushing down between the gates of the weir ceases neither day nor night. Among the beauties of this old building is a moss-grown roof of Stonesfield slate, perhaps the most attractive roofing material ever used in England. Or Horsham stone, of course, is quite good, actually. I would rather see it than the finest thatch or the most mellowed tiles. Stonesfield slate. Got to look that up now. Find out what... Expiation. Oh, expiation. Oh, expiation. Thank you, Linda. Expiation. There we go. One of the pleasures of travelling in England is crossing the geological boundaries into new scenery and to fresh styles in ancient architecture. That's true. After travelling for some time, as I had done, through the chalk, the clay and the upper green sand counties of Kent, Sussex, Hampshire and Berkshire, it was delightful to enter the Limestone district of Oxfordshire, a part of the great band of oolite which runs across England, beginning in Dorset and going by way of Somerset, Wiltshire and the Cotswolds, through Oxfordshire, Bedfordshire, Northamptonshire and Lincolnshire, right up to the moors of North Yorkshire. Ooliptic limestone. We like that. It's oolite, isn't it? Oolite limestone. Is it ooliptic? Is that a different thing? Or am I making that up? All the old villages in this limestone belt are made of fine stone, some of them dark, some of them honey brown, and those buildings which, like the inn at Godstow, are also roofed with stone, which seem to me the most perfect of all. Mellowed by centuries of wind and rain, they collect the seeds of many mosses and even ferns, which thrive until they form a soft greenish-yellow carpet, through which the silver grey of the stones can still be seen. The inn at Godstow is familiar to generations of Oxford men, and it's good to know that popularity has not spoilt it. There is a touch of Alice in Wonderland about it. The rooms are low, dark and heavily beamed. The bar full of old oak and settles. The bar full of old oak and settles is... what's a settle? Is crowded like a museum with rustic objects and sporting relics. portions of foxes, hares and otters, spurs, prints of horses and game birds, old china, pewter, cases of butterflies and stuffed fish are all lying about or hung on the walls in an easy and natural way. Generations of undergraduates have filled the place with laughter and talk, with exuberance and a youthful extravagance of mind, so that I did not know whether the old house itself or the people who ran it were responsible for the impression that it is a quaint repository of much that is precious and lovable in the English character, among which I would mention humour, toleration, and a casual acceptance of eccentricity. The place overflowed with hearty young men, pint pots in hand. Across the meadows came others who walked from Oxford, and still more came by car and bicycle, until the terrace by the water was crowded with new and, in my opinion, satisfactory generation. I went to look at the remains of the nunnery at Godstow, which lies opposite in a meadow. This is the place where Rosamond Clifford, the fair Rosamond... Rosamond? Rosamond. It's a strange name, not Rosamond. Rosamond Clifford, fair Rosamond of romance, was educated, and where she is buried. The nunnery is now a shapeless and untidy ruin, a pen for cattle, and even the site of Rosamond's grave is no longer known. Her story is the earliest of our royal love tragedies, and I suppose there is no one who is not familiar with it. I'm not familiar with it. Are you familiar with it? Rosamond's tragedy love story? We're not familiar with it. Tell us! English writers, from early historians and ballad writers to Scott, Swinburne, and Tennyson, have been attracted by it, and so indeed have the writers of other nations. There is a Spanish opera about fair Rosamond. It's a strange name, isn't it? I can't quite get that. There is a Spanish thing about opera about fair Rosamond, and there are poems about her in French and in Italian. Ah, mamma mia, we must go to the fair Rosamond grave. It's a nice grave. You should see it. We cannot see it. It is gone. Nobody knows where it is. If only we knew where it was. Oh, gee. I've got a pizza for her. Anyway, her immortality hangs literally by a thread, for without the incident of the ball of silk, which, unwinding itself as she fled into the maze at Woodstock, led the jealous queen to her hiding place, there would be precious little to remember about her. Turbostream, never heard of it. Rosamond, Norman French. Norman French. Yeah, well, I'm not. So I'm glad I'm in good company, Adrian, because I don't know what it is either. Let's just quickly look at some of these. Settle is equal to seat. Oh, is it? So what? I can't remember the context now. What was settle? We talked about settle earlier. I can't remember what it was. Where? What? There was something and settle. Oh, see, was it in the pub? In the pub, wasn't it? Oh, a settle. Oh, okay. Linda says, was mined as a roofing stone called Stones Field Slate. Wikipedia. Oh. Rosamond, Norman French. Thank you. I used to go to school with a Rosamond. Did you? I never heard that name before. Never heard it. But there we are. Rosamond. Curious. Anyway, all the early accounts mention this thread, and it seems possible that there may be some truth in the legend, and also in the belief that in order to conceal his love of Rosamond from the Queen, the King smuggled her about the country discreetly, and perhaps made Woodstock her special hiding place. Eleanor of Aquitaine was 11 years older. Eleanor, not Elizabeth, did I? I can't remember what I said. Eleanor of Aquitaine was 11 years older than Henry II, and if the date of Rosamond's murder is correct, she would have been a woman of 55 when she discovered her husband's infidelity. She was a remarkable woman, a noted beauty in her time, a woman who was the wife of King Louis of France. A woman who, as the wife of King Louis of France, had accompanied him on a crusade to the royal land, to the Holy Land, and then had fascinated and married the young King of England and had become the mother of Richard the Lionheart. Legend says that when Harry discovered that Rosamond had been murdered, he sent the Queen to prison, got Columbo out and said, "Just one more thing." No, Columbo wasn't around then, just so you know. He sent the Queen to prison, but she survived him and lived to a great age. During Richard's imprisonment in France, she set herself, at the age of 72, to raise an immense sum for his ransom, and then, worn out, she died. She snuffed it. Rosamond slept in Godstow under a remarkable Latin pun. Rosamond slept in Godstow under a remarkable Latin pun, which, according to the coarse feeling of the time, was probably one often engraved upon the tombs of Rosamonds. A free translation is, an expensive one is a lot more, "Within this tomb lies the world's chiefest rose, who was sweet." Sorry, I buggered it up. Poetry, I bugger up. For some reason, I cannot read poetry straight off. "Within this tomb lies the world's chiefest rose. She who was sweet will now offend the nose." Oh, yes. In other words, she's gone right off. Well, that's interesting. How are we doing on the old Timex? Not too bad, not too bad. Forgive the bad spelling. Certainly will. Long before the inn was awake in the morning, I let myself out into the garden. The sun was shining, dew was thick upon the grass, and the sound of water coming into the weir was almost thunderous in the hush of the early morning. From the curve of a rustic bridge, I looked into the water, where a number of large barbel swam, motionless but for a flick of a tail or fin, their heads held into the stream. In the bright garden opposite, sunlight touched clumps of summer flowers, and a peacock walked among them solemnly, lifting and rattling a great blue and green fan of tail feathers, apparently for his own pleasure and vanity. I saw a pole moving among the willows, and a punt came slowly into view, holding the sleeping forms of 3 or 4 young men, while a figure in shorts and a blazer stood slowly thrusting the pole into the water. He climbed onto the terrace and came running across the bridge to ask me where the lock was. He said that, as the night had been such a lovely one, he and his companions had decided to spend it on the river. They had come slowly up from Oxford by moonlight. It was nothing, I suppose, that brief encounter in the unwakened morning, with the dew on the grass and the birds singing, but there was something about it which, even at that time, I knew I would always remember this as one remembers a tune or a verse. And I think perhaps that young man, born into the dark world, may also one day recall with pleasure the nights they went punting up from Oxford by the light of the moon, to come cold into the sweet morning by Godstow Weir, and be gobbled up by goblins of an unknown. I'm making that bit up. The goblins. Just so you know. Because Walter Scott took some liberties with fact in... What do you want? Because Walter Scott took some liberties with fact in Kenilworth, which I assume is a book that he wrote, many people will tell you that Amy Robsart, Lady Dudley, met her mysterious death in that famous castle. Actually, Kenilworth did not come into the possession of Robert Dudley until about 3 years after Amy's death. She was accidentally killed, or murdered, in a gloomy old house called Cumnor Place, now pulled down some 3.5 miles to the south of Oxford, just over the Berkshire border. When I saw the village at Cumnor at the end of a sunny afternoon, there was no atmosphere of mystery about it, nothing to indicate that there had been a scene of a tragedy that once caused all the courts of Europe to whisper and gossip. It's a pretty little village, composed of stone houses, some thatched and others roofed with stone, and in the centre stands an old parish church. I asked a villager if anything remained of Cumnor Place. He replied that the building had been pulled down by the 3rd Lord Abingdon over 100 years ago, for it was so badly haunted by the ghost of Amy Robsart that no one would live in it. And this, I find, is true. After the death of Antony Foster, who was in residence at the time of Amy's death, the hall was never again occupied, and so in the course of centuries it gradually fell into ruin and decay. A determined attempt to lay the ghost was once made by 10 Oxford clerics, but apparently without success, for the hall remained until its demolition in 1810 one of the most eerie and shunned ruins in England. I could find no trace of it at all to the south of the church where I was told it once stood. Therefore, I was obliged to reconstruct in my imagination a gloomy medieval building of stone, pierced by many slender lancet windows, austere and church-like. In Cumnor Church, you can see an admirable engraving of the hall as it looked just before it was pulled down. In September 1560, Amy Robsart went to stay there with her husband's steward, Antony Foster, and his wife, who had rented the hall. This was characteristic of her lonely life after scandal had coupled the name of her husband with that of the Queen. Poor Amy was one obstacle to the marriage which foreign ambassadors and the gossip of the court believed to be on the way. So scandalous were the stories that it was commonly believed that Elizabeth and Dudley were the parents of a daughter. Elizabeth was 27 years of age at this time. Robert Dudley and Amy were the same age, 28. Well, that's not the same age, is it? That's 1 year older, fool. Months before Amy's death, the Spanish ambassador, who had reason for keeping his ear close to the ground, probably because it kept falling off, I imagine, reported to Philip of Spain that I hear from a person who is accustomed to give veracious news that Lord Robert has sent to poison his wife, which whether true or not, indicates the impression that the affair created. Sorry, I'll read that bit again because I lost the thread of that. So anyway, this bloke, whoever it was, the Philip of Spain's, I've no idea really what I'm talking about. Elizabeth was 27, the other bloke was 28. He had this Spanish ambassador, that's the one. The Spanish ambassador said, I hear from a person who's accustomed to give veracious news that Lord Robert has sent to poison his wife, which, whether true or not, indicates the impression which the affair created in the contemporary mind. There can be no doubt that Dudley had no further use for Amy, and that she stood alone, firmly in the path of his ambition. She was pushed into the background and spent her miserable life travelling around from country house to country house, her only pleasure a pathetic passion for fine clothes. Her surviving correspondence consists of tailors' bills and notes to tailors and dressmakers. Perhaps the poor girl, like many other triangular wife, I suppose the third in the relationship is what he's saying, was determined not to let herself go to pieces. Maybe she dreamt in front of the mirror, for she is said to have been a good-looking and of reconquering the unscrupulous ruffian for whom she married. Oh, she dreamt of reconquering. In other words, she was one of these women who thought that she could bring the marriage back from the grave. However, in September 1560, she found herself in gloomy Cumnor Place. In addition to her servants, the households consisted of the tenant Antony Foster and his wife, and two guests, Mrs. Owen and Mrs. Oddingsells. If that's not a suspicious name, I don't know what is. Miss or Odingsells. I sell Odings. Really? What kind of Odings? Oh, nice green and purple Odings. On the 8th of September, which was a Sunday, Abingdon Fair was in full swing, and Amy rose early with the intention, apparently, that the whole household should have a holiday and go to the fair, leaving her alone with Mrs. Owen. But the two other ladies, Mrs. Foster and Mrs. Odingsells, did not fall in with this plan, and some words followed. Mrs. Odingsells thought that Sunday was no day for a gentlewoman to go to a fair. "We're not going to a fair on a Sunday, the Sabbath. Who do you take as?" Amy retorted with anger that Mrs. Odingsells should choose what day she went to the fair, but the servants could not do so. Therefore, only the servants went, leaving at home Amy, the three women, and perhaps Foster, although there's no evidence that he was at Cumnor at the time. Indeed, in the absence of any account of his actions that night, it seems possible that he was not there or not. Is anyone actually following what's going on? I don't know who this Amy was. I don't know who these other people are. I really haven't a clue what's going on. Maybe I just read this badly, but I really have no... I am not... Oh, this goes on and on and on. This bloody thing about Amy Turtle, whatever. Sounds very odious, doesn't it? This page, I might cut this bit out because I have no idea. She sounds like a bit of a weird woman. Anyway, what happened's not clear. It's believed that Amy dined alone in her apartments with Mrs. Owen, and that after dinner the four ladies played some table game together, and then, presumably, went to bed. Late at night, when the servants came home from the fair, they found the body of their mistress lying at the bottom of a spiral stone staircase that ran from her apartments to the hall beneath. Someone noticed, although her neck was broken, her hood had not been displaced, the suggestion being that her dead body had been put there. Bum, bum, bum. Her death caused tremendous sensation, as well it might. What malicious gossips had been whispering had actually come true, and the word murder sprang naturally to the lips. Murder. See how natural that was? It just murder comes just so natural. It just gurgles out of my throat. Murder. So natural. Of this, Dudley, who we introduced, I can't remember who he was now, was well aware, and he was alarmed by the danger to himself. But he had nothing to fear. The coroner's jury unearthed no evidence of murder, and a verdict of mischance was not misadventure, but mischance. "Hello, I'm Miss Chance. How are you? Nice to see you," was returned. But the verdict had no effect on contemporary opinion. People continued to whisper that Lady Dudley had been murdered by her ambitious husband, or driven to desperation by his actions, and had committed suicide, a possibility revealed by Lady Amy's maid, who said that she had once heard her mistress pray to God, deliver her from this desperation. "Please, God, deliver me from this desperation." A writer of detective fiction would make a great point of the victim's desire to be alone that night, of her desperate anxiety to empty the house, and of the significant fact that she was wearing a hood when she was found. Not one of the Ku Klux Klan hoods, I should hasten to add. As though she were going outdoors, perhaps to meet someone. But such speculations only serve to deepen and confuse the mystery of her death, which is a stupid reason then for adding them. One fact that I do think is important. Amy Robsart was not, as many of her partisans have imagined to have been, a healthy young woman. She was not a healthy young woman. She was suffering from a disease which may have been cancer. The Spanish ambassador, de Ferrier, wrote to his monarch 18 months before Amy's death these significant words: "People talk of this so freely, Dudley's affair with the Queen, that they go so far to say that the wife has a malady of one of her breasts, and the Queen is only waiting for her to die so as to marry Lord Robert." Were this true, the poor girl, suffering from a fatal disease, mentally affected by the tragedy of her marriage, childless, lonely, and unwanted, must have been in an abnormal state of mind, and this is amply borne out by Sir Thomas Blount, who was sent hot haste to Dudley. I like to get sent hot haste in a sort of creamy paste. It's quite tasty with a white wine sauce. Who was sent hot haste to Dudley to inquire into the tragedy, writing from Cumnor while Lady Amy's dead body still lay there, festering with bees and rats nibbling at it, said, "I have heard divers tales of her that maketh me to judge her to be a strange woman of mind." And again, in the same letter, "The tales I do hear of her maketh me to think that she had a strange mind in her, as I will tell you at my coming. It does maketh me to think that she is a strange-minded person. I have a mind of myself, which maketh what of it you will, maketh you, maketh me, maketh you, aha, I have a mind to maketh me too." Sorry. This is just a moment of completely whatever. If only we could know what these strange tales were which Blount promised to tell Dudley, we might be able to judge her mental condition. And I think, could we know them, they would prove that she was suffering from a melancholia, or worse, induced by her disease and her husband's cruelty, and that in an almost empty house on Sunday night in September 1560, moved by the restlessness and misery, and with no one to take care of her, she left her room for some reason and met an accidental death. I do not for one moment think that she committed suicide. People bent on self-destruction do not use spiral staircases for this purpose. They descend them with utmost care, carrying daggers or phials of poison, taking every precaution not to slip. I also suggest, my lord, that while women can write earnestly to dressmakers, they do not often commit suicide. Case closed. That's what he thought. I wish it was the case closed. We've got 8 minutes. I've just got one more paragraph of nonsense to go. I entered Cumnor Church and found it full of relics associated with the mystery. A life-size statue of Elizabeth, an extraordinary object to find in a church, stands against the window, holding the sceptre and the orb, and saying, "Cool, blimey, this is a bit heavy. Could you hold it for a bit?" In a place of such memories, there is something exceedingly sinister about it. A notice says that the statue is supposed to have been originally made to Dudley's orders and placed in the gardens of Cumnor Place as a compliment to his mistress. But it is not. But is it not more likely to have been one of Antony Foster's gestures of loyalty? I don't know. The church contains the tomb of Antony Foster, the man who must have known the true story of Amy Robsart's death. Hanging on the wall near the door are several pictures of Cumnor Place. Cumnor, come all. There is also a letter from Amy Robsart to the tailor named William Edney, who lived at Tower Royal, which was not in London, a different tower, but near Bucklebury in Berkshire. 2 tailors' bills for clothes are hung in the church. Amy Robsart was fated never to wear these garments, which were delivered after her death. The bills include the following items: for making a petticoat of scarlet with bodice and stocks of crimson velvet, 10 shillings. For making a Spanish gown of velvet with a fringe and black silk and gold, 8 shillings. For murdering Amy Robsart when no one was looking, 28 shillings. Oh no, sorry, that's a misprint. Amy Robsart's tailor bills and the statue of Queen Elizabeth are perhaps the strangest relics of an unedifying triangle to be found in any church. But time has cast over them the impersonality of museum exhibits, and as long as history is read, people will go to look at them puzzled and interested by the unsolved mystery of Cumnor Place. And there I think we will leave it, because it comes to an end there. What about that? The mystery of Cumnor Place. Was she murdered, or was she pushed? Or was she placed there? Did she die of heart disease? Did she have cancer? Was her left breast hacked off mercilessly and stuck on the nose of Queen Elizabeth I? Or have I just made all of this up? Who knows? Who cares? But we did enjoy it. It was great fun. Anyway, that's it for now. I don't have to do a Vogue show tonight because I'm taking the night off. Ha ha! But I am going to be researching my next bit for my next videoing, which I shall hopefully go out tomorrow if the weather is nice. James Blunt the singer is a descendant of Blount, who was an illegitimate son of Henry VIII. Ah, interesting. What ho, Vobsters? Have I missed anything? I guess I have to catch up. Andrew Norris, you've missed the murder of Amy, whatever her name was, Winehart. No, that was a singer, wasn't it? Anyway, Buckleberry in Berkshire. Yes, didn't I read that? Not rubbing Amy's nose in it then? No, definitely not. And the other women, the Queen, no less. Yes. Sorry, let's just quickly go back and have a... where's the sodding... There it is, the mouse. We're just going to quickly read some of the comments before I disembark. Ed Loud says, people sure have some interesting nicknames. They do, don't they? Darnley was a... What? Darnley was a utter, the first water. Okay. Sounds odious. Yes, my parents... Linda, my parents called me Yeti. Nice. Dudley wanted to marry Elizabeth I, but his wife was in the way. Have I walked into a horror story, says Mike Stevens. Yes, I think it was pretty hurry. Dudley's relationship with Queen Elizabeth meant that he could have wanted to kill Amy, his wife. He'd better be with his wife. So Amy was sick and Dudley left her for another woman. Yeah, that seems to be it. Not rubbing her nose in it. I get it. It seems Dudley was the guilty person here and not Amy. And the other woman was the Queen. Yes. You know, it's all tittle-tattle, isn't it? It's all tittle-tattle. This sort of thing happens up and down the countryside. But mostly it's not with the Queen the first. Anyway, all quite good. We came in late today. No worries. There's lots of nice sunshine about. Do enjoy it if you can, if you're got sunshine. Don't know what the weather is doing down in Sussex tomorrow, but I'll go and have a look because I'm hoping to be out filming. But anyway, thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you and lovely to read to you. And sorry I get a bit carried away at moments, mainly by the men in white coats. And they're waiting outside now with bated breasts. So it was better than basted breasts, I suppose. Ed Loud says, thanks for reading, Richard. I really enjoy your style of reading and the thoughts and the ad atop the literature. Yeah, well, the ad-libs, you mean. The ad-libs. It's all a bit crazy. Bye all. See you tomorrow. Yes, we'll sit on the back row again now. Busy bee, busy bee. Good for you. Take care. Again, thank you very much, Linda Kane, for your wonderful jester. That jester? Your lovely jester. I shall wear it on my Fiesta. When I'm driving my Fiesta. Who drove a Fiesta? Anyway, take care, and I will stop prattling on because I've got to go and light the Essie and get some food going now. Anyway, nice to see you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. It's always so difficult to turn this thing off, isn't it? Bye-bye.